Madeline Brooks stood in the freezing wind outside the Hale and Partners Tower, clutching a paper bag of dinner that had gone cold hours ago. Snowflakes gathered on her sleeves, melting into tiny circles of water that soaked through the thin fabric of her coat. She kept checking her phone, hoping for a message, a missed call, anything, but the screen stayed dark, reflecting only her own tired eyes. Her husband, Grayson Hale, had promised he would meet her after his late meeting. Yet it was nearly midnight, and the streets of Midtown were almost empty, except for the occasional Mercedes sliding past and the warm glow from a Fifth Avenue cafe. She tried calling again. Straight to voicemail. Maybe he was working? Maybe he lost track of time? Maybe? A harsh laugh cut through her thoughts. Across the street, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Grayson stepped out, straightening the collar of his designer coat as a woman followed behind him, her red dress shimmering under the streetlight. The way she brushed her fingers against his shoulder, the way he smirked at her. Maddie felt something inside her chest twist painfully. She stood frozen, not because of the cold, but because the truth hit her harder than any winter wind ever could. He hadn't been in a meeting, he hadn't been working late, he had been with her, the woman whose lipstick still marked the edge of his jaw. Maddie stumbled backward, heart pounding, breath shaking. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. She wasn't just betrayed, she was humiliated, invisible, discarded, like she meant nothing. The red-dressed woman whispered something into Grayson's ear. He laughed openly, carelessly, before kissing her, as if the world around them didn't exist. As if his wife wasn't standing 20 feet away, crumbling. The snow kept falling, covering Maddie's hair, her coat, her shoes, anything soft enough to hold the weight of it. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A message from an unknown number. "Walk away, Madeline. He's more dangerous than you think." Her pulse stopped. Her breath froze. Her world tilted. Because the message didn't come from a stranger. It came from inside the courthouse. And it meant someone already knew what was coming next. Madeline Brooks woke the next morning with the same heaviness she had fallen asleep with, a weight that clung to her chest like wet wool. The tiny studio apartment she and Grayson once called their fresh start felt suffocating now. Its pale walls, once cozy, seemed to echo with the ghost of every promise he had broken. Yet Maddie moved quietly, mechanically, as if keeping still for too long might cause her entire world to collapse. Her life had never been simple. She grew up in a string of foster homes upstate, learning early that survival meant staying quiet, staying small, staying grateful for even the smallest crumbs of stability. She worked her way through college with 2 part-time jobs, then scraped together enough to live in New York, hoping that she could build something better for herself. Working as a legal clerk at the federal court wasn't glamorous, but she loved the work. The order, the rules, the sense that truth still had a place in the world. And then came Grayson, Hale, sharp suit, sharper smile, the kind of man who seemed to know how to fill a room effortlessly. He saw her, or at least she thought he did. He told her she was brilliant when she felt invisible. He told her she was beautiful when she had never been told so. He told her they were a team, that he believed in her, and she believed him right back. But marriage had slowly chiseled away at her sense of self. Grayson controlled their finances for organization, criticized her job for its low pay, suggested she looked tired even on her best days. Maddie convinced herself it was stress, pressure, ambition, anything but cruelty. She wanted so badly to be the woman he loved, or at least the woman he pretended to love. This morning, the bruising memory of last night, the red dress, the laughter, the kiss felt like a blade twisting deeper. Still, she dressed carefully for work, a navy blouse, simple slacks, hair pinned back neatly. She couldn't afford to fall apart. Not at the courthouse. Not with the reputation she had built piece by piece. On the subway ride to Manhattan, she kept replaying the message from the unknown number. "Walk away, Madeline. He's more dangerous than you think." She had considered deleting it, pretending it never existed. But the words burrowed into her mind, unsettling and strangely protective. When she arrived at the courthouse, the marble columns and gleaming floors greeted her with their usual indifferent grandeur. She swiped her badge, walked past the security checkpoint, and forced her breath to steady. Her supervisor, Mr. Larkin, handed her a stack of files without looking up. "You're assigned to Judge Kelmore's docket today," he said brusquely. "High-profile case. Don't make mistakes." She nodded, swallowing the sting. She rarely made mistakes. She simply wasn't the kind of person anyone bothered to notice. As she approached her workstation, she froze. On her desk was a folder stamped with a familiar name. Hale Innovations, Financial Misconduct Review. Her fingertips went cold. Grayson's company. His case. His lies. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she opened the file. The first page alone made her breath catch. Bank transfers she didn't recognize. Forged signatures she knew weren't legal. Documents she had never seen but that bore her initials. He hadn't just cheated on her. He had used her. Framed her. Set her up without her even seeing it. Her knees weakened, and she gripped the edge of the desk to stay upright. And then, as if the universe wanted to push her further, someone walked past behind her and murmured just loud enough. Poor thing, she still has no idea. Grayson Hale had always possessed a kind of charisma that made people lean in when he spoke. The kind that made waiters rush, investors nod, and women forget their better judgment. On the surface, he was everything New York admired: sharp, ambitious, impossibly polished. The kind of man whose presence could turn a conference room silent, whose confidence felt like gravity. But beneath that well-tailored exterior was a darkness Maddie had never wanted to see. When Grayson first launched Hale Innovations, he sold the narrative of a self-made tech visionary. Investors believed him. Business magazines adored him. He stood on stages with a wireless mic clipped to his collar, hands moving like a conductor as he talked about entrepreneurship, integrity, and revolutionizing finance with transparent technology. Yet transparency was the last thing he believed in. Every word he spoke on those stages was rehearsed, every statistic adjusted, every story bent just enough to shine the spotlight on himself. What no one knew, not even Maddie, was how deep his desperation ran. His entire empire was held together by loans stacked on lies, doctored reports, and falsified audits. When he realized his company was on the verge of collapse, he didn't rebuild. He covered. He created new shells, inflated profits, looped money through accounts under names that weren't his. Some signatures he forged, others he pressured people into signing. And one of those names, the one that made his hands shake the night he used it, was Madeline Brooks. He justified it to himself easily. Maddie was just a clerk. No one would look at her twice. No one would question her involvement. They'd assume she simply followed instructions. And if things ever went wrong, well, he could claim she misunderstood. He could cry innocence, blame confusion, insist his wife had been manipulated by someone else. It was a perfect trap. But the trap wasn't perfect because Grayson had one weakness: arrogance. He believed Maddie would never leave him, never question him, never imagine he could betray her. As long as he fed her small compliments, as long as he touched her waist in public, she would stay blind. That's what he believed. And he believed it even more after meeting Aubrey Lang. Aubrey was everything Maddie wasn't, at least in Grayson's eyes. Young, reckless, ambitious enough to claw her way toward status, yet naive enough to think Grayson offered love instead of opportunity. She worshipped him. She believed his lies without blinking. She was impressed by the expensive restaurants, the penthouse lounges, the shiny access he dangled in front of her. The first night they met, Aubrey's laughter echoed through a rooftop bar overlooking the Manhattan skyline. She leaned toward him with a manicured finger on his tie, whispering that he deserved better than a wife who held him back. Grayson didn't disagree. He liked being admired. He liked being wanted. And he liked that Aubrey never asked questions. Soon, he began spending more nights with Aubrey than with Maddie. Gifts followed jewelry, hotel suites, a tablet loaded with travel plans he never intended to fulfill. Aubrey became his escape, his distraction, his validation. But even Aubrey didn't know the full truth. She didn't know about the missing audit that could destroy him. She didn't know the federal investigation circling closer. She didn't know one wrong file sitting on a clerk's desk could end his entire career. And the only person who unknowingly held that file was Maddie. Now, as Grayson admired himself in the mirror of his office, smoothing his immaculate hair, the door cracked open slightly. A coworker whispered, "They assigned the Hale case to a clerk this morning." Grayson smirked, uninterested until the coworker added, "Name's Madeline Brooks." His smile dropped. That was the first moment fear touched him. And he realized something. Maddie wasn't just a liability. She was the one person who could ruin everything. The courthouse was always loud in the mornings, the echo of rushed footsteps, the hum of printers, the sharp clicks of attorneys' heels crossing marble floors. But that day, for Madeline Brooks, everything felt strangely muffled, as though the world had been wrapped in cotton. Her pulse throbbed in her temples, her breath uneven as she forced herself up the courthouse steps. Last night's betrayal still sat like a bruise on her heart, pulsing with every move she made. Inside, the air held its usual coldness, crisp enough to remind her she wasn't allowed to fall apart. She clutched the Hale Innovations file close to her chest, fingers digging into the folder until the cardboard bent. The elevators were packed, so she took the stairs, anything to avoid being trapped in a small space with her swirling thoughts. When she reached the clerk's office, her hands trembled. She tried to steady them by arranging her workspace, aligning pens, straightening paper stacks, anything to stop the shaking. But when she opened the file again, her stomach twisted. Her initials were stamped on a document she had never seen. A financial approval form. One with numbers that made no sense. Her name. Her signature. Her life inserted into something dark without her knowing. She swallowed hard, forcing down panic. She had to focus. Judge Kelmore expected precision. There was no room for mistakes. Just as she gathered the paperwork, a senior clerk, Janice, brushed past her. Janice had always been polite but distant, the way seasoned staff often were with newer hires. Today, however, she paused long enough to give Maddie an unreadable look. "You're assigned to courtroom 3, she said. "Big case. Don't get overwhelmed." Maddie nodded, though the tremor in her hands betrayed her. Courtroom 3 was already packed, reporters in the back, attorneys whispering, attention thick enough to taste. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but that never stopped the buzz. This was the kind of case that made headlines, the kind that determined careers, the kind that ruined people. She forced her steps to stay steady as she walked to the clerk's desk at the front of the room. A few attorneys glanced at her, some curious, some pitying. She ignored the stares until she reached the bench. Then she froze. Grayson Hale sat at the defense table. Perfect suit, perfect posture, perfect lie carved across his face. He didn't see her yet. Or maybe he did, and pretended he didn't. That was more like him. His attorney leaned close, whispering something that made him smirk. Maddie's heart hammered painfully. She gripped the desk so tightly her knuckles whitened. The prosecutor approached her quietly. "You're the clerk assigned to this case?" She nodded, trying to find her voice. "Yes, sir." He handed her a flash drive. "This contains the evidence we'll present today. Handle it carefully, it's sensitive." As she plugged the device into the court system, the first thumbnail preview popped onto the monitor. Small, grainy, but unmistakable. A hotel hallway. A man kissing a woman in a red dress. His hands on her waist. His face turned toward the camera. Grayson. Her husband. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard, but the image stayed. The prosecutor hadn't meant to show her anything private, but the universe had. Her lungs tightened. She fought for air. Before she could regain control, Judge Kelmore entered, and everyone rose. The courtroom rustled with movement, but Maddie barely felt her own legs lifting her upright. "Be seated," the judge said. Papers shuffled, voices lowered. The prosecutor began his opening remarks, but Maddie couldn't hear a word. Her pulse drowned everything out. Then, finally, Grayson looked up. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something she had never seen in him. Fear. Just a flicker, but real. Her hands slipped from the desk edge. The room tilted. Her breath stopped. Someone shouted, "She's fainting." And the last thing she heard before darkness swallowed her was, "Call emergency. The clerk is collapsing." The world did not go dark all at once. It flickered like a dying light bulb, struggling to stay alive, then blurred into long streaks of color. Madeline Brooks felt the courtroom slipping away from her, as though someone had reached inside her chest and pulled out the final thread holding her together. Gasps erupted from the gallery, papers rustled, chairs scraped against the polished floor. Somewhere far away, Judge Kelmore's gavel struck wood in rapid succession, but the sound was swallowed by the rush of blood pounding in Maddie's ears. She tried to speak, to breathe, to do anything except fall. But gravity claimed her. Her knees buckled first. Her fingers lost their grip on the desk edge. The prosecutor lunged forward, but he was a second too late. Maddie collapsed onto the marble floor, her cheek hitting the cold surface with a soft thud that echoed louder than any scream. "Maddie," Someone call medical. Move back. Give her space. Oh my God, is she conscious? The voices clashed and tangled above her, fading in and out like they were underwater. Her body felt impossibly heavy, as if weighed down by every moment she had ever stayed silent, every hurt she had ever swallowed. She wanted to cry out, tell them she was fine, tell them she just needed a breath, but her lips wouldn't move. A flash of motion appeared in her peripheral vision. Grayson. He stood frozen beside the defense table, his jaw clenched, eyes narrowed not with worry, but calculation. His attorney tugged his sleeve, whispering urgently. Yet Grayson remained still, staring at her the way one might watch a threat being neutralized. Maddie saw it, even through the haze. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't afraid for her. He was afraid of what she knew. Footsteps thundered toward her, and a new voice cut through the chaos, deep, controlled, vibrating with authority. I've got her, move. He's Stu S. Strong arms lifted her from the floor, steady but gentle, as though holding something breakable. A faint scent of cedar and clean cologne surrounded her. She tried to lift her head, but her vision doubled. It's okay, Madeline. You're safe. Julian Mercer. She recognized the voice everyone in the courthouse did. The CEO whose firm sponsored judicial reform, the man with a reputation for being as composed as ice under pressure. Why was he here? Why was he holding her? The crowd parted in stunned silence as Julian carried her toward the hallway. Reporters craned their necks, whispering, snapping photos even without cameras. A clerk fainting mid-trial was news, but being carried out by Julian Mercer turned it into a spectacle. Stay with me, Julian murmured, brushing a stray strand of hair from her forehead. You're going to be all right. Her heartbeat slowed, her eyelids fluttering. She caught one last glimpse of Grayson before being taken outside. His face was pale now, sweat beading at his temple. His attorney was whispering frantically, pointing at the judge, at Maddie, at the evidence screen. Grayson wasn't worried about her health. He was worried about exposure. As Julian pushed through the heavy doors, Maddie's body slumped against him. She managed one final breath before consciousness slipped completely. Julian, she whispered. I'm right here, he said. Then, everything went black. The world returned to Madeline Brooks, slowly, first as a thin ribbon of sound, then a flicker of harsh fluorescent light behind her eyelids, and finally the sharp smell of antiseptic that made her chest tighten. She wasn't in the courtroom anymore. She wasn't on the cold marble floor with dozens of eyes watching her fall apart. She was lying on a hospital bed, wrapped in stiff white sheets that felt too heavy for her frail, trembling body. For a moment, she didn't move. Her mind drifted somewhere between confusion and dread. Then she heard the soft beeping of a heart monitor beside her, steady but fragile, like a reminder that she was still here, still alive despite everything threatening to pull her under. A nurse noticed her stirring and hurried over. Miss Brooks, you're awake. Just take it slow, okay? Madeline tried to sit up, but pain shot through her ribs, forcing her back against the pillows. What happened? She whispered, her throat dry as dust. You fainted, the nurse said gently. You were dehydrated, overstressed, and your blood pressure dropped dangerously low. But you're stable now. Maddie blinked, trying to piece together fragments of memory, the courtroom, the video, Grayson's face, Julian's arms lifting her, but it all blurred into one dizzying wave. I need to get back to work, she murmured instinctively. The nurse gave her a look that was both sympathetic and firm. No, sweetheart, you're not going anywhere yet. And there's something you need to know. Maddie froze. The nurse took a breath, then said softly, You're pregnant. The words slammed into her like a physical blow. For a moment, the room tilted. No, Maddie whispered. That can't be right. We ran the tests twice, the nurse continued. You're in the early stages, but the pregnancy is fragile. Very fragile. You fainting wasn't just stress, your body is under severe strain. Maddie pressed a hand to her abdomen, shocked by how foreign the gesture felt. Pregnant. After all the heartbreak, after the betrayal, after the night she saw Grayson with another woman, how could life possibly form inside her now? A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't even realize she was crying until it touched her lips. The nurse squeezed her hand. You're not alone, okay? The doctor will explain everything. 2017. And now. But the moment she stepped out, the room's silence grew cold again. Maddie didn't have time to process anything before the door opened once more. A tall figure entered, his presence commanding yet strangely gentle. Julian Mercer. He wore no coat, just a crisp white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms tense with restrained worry. "Maddie," he said quietly. "Thank God you're awake." She swallowed hard. "Why? Why were you there? Why did you help me?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took the chair beside her bed and sat down, leaning forward slightly. His eyes held a depth she hadn't noticed before, something like anger, but not at her. "You collapsed in front of people who didn't care about you," he said. "Someone needed to." Maddie lowered her gaze. "I'm pregnant," saying it aloud made her voice break. "And I don't know what to do." Julian's jaw tightened. "I know," he said softly. "The doctor told me." "You knew before I did?" Her voice cracked. Julian hesitated, then nodded. "I stayed until they stabilized you," he admitted, "and the doctor thought you'd want someone nearby when you woke up." Maddie's breath hitched. "Grayson, did he come?" Julian's expression darkened, not with pity, but with certainty. "No," he said. "He never showed up." The last fragile piece of her heart shattered. And only then did Julian add, voice low, "You need to understand, Madeline. This wasn't an accident. Someone wanted you to break today." Julian Mercer had seen hundreds of people break in courtrooms, powerful CEOs who lost everything, white-collar criminals, realizing the handcuffs were real, families shattered by verdicts they never expected. But he had never seen someone fall the way Madeline Brooks did. Not with that mix of exhaustion, betrayal, and something deeper he couldn't yet name. The moment she collapsed, something inside him snapped with a clarity he didn't expect. He wasn't supposed to care. He didn't even know her. Yet here he was, sitting beside her hospital bed, long after visiting hours had ended. Maddie stared at him now, eyes glossy with confusion and fear. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "You don't even know me." Julian leaned back slightly, steepling his fingers as he chose his words carefully, something he rarely had to do. Most people feared his silence. But Maddie deserved honesty. "I know enough," he said quietly. "I know your husband is in serious trouble. I know someone used your name on documents that could bury you with him. And I know you fainted because the weight of all that was dropped on you without warning." Maddie closed her eyes as a tremor ran through her. "He framed me." The words tasted like poison. Why would he do that to me? Julian studied her, really looked at her. The thin hospital blanket couldn't hide how small she looked. Sleepless nights drew shadows under her eyes. Her shoulders curled inward the way people do when they've spent years trying to take up less space. He spoke softly. "Because you trusted him. That made you easy to use." Her breath hitched a soft, wounded sound that twisted something in his chest. She looked away. "I don't know what to do. I'm pregnant, and Her voice cracked. "I don't even know if I'm safe." And seventated. Julian's expression changed, sharpening with a resolve she didn't expect. "I'm going to help you," he said simply. She shook her head weakly. "No, I don't want to drag anyone else into this mess." "You're not dragging me," Julian replied. "I'm stepping in." There was no arrogance in his tone, only calm certainty. Maddie didn't understand it. Men like Julian, wealthy, powerful, untouchable, didn't get involved with people like her. They didn't sit in hospital rooms, didn't wait for clerks to wake up, didn't speak as though someone else's survival mattered to them. "Why?" she whispered again. Julian hesitated, not because he didn't know, because he wasn't sure how much she was ready to hear. Finally, he said, "Because Grayson Hale isn't just a cheating husband. He's under investigation by several agencies, including some I work closely with. And if he put your name on fraudulent documents," Julian leaned forward, meeting her eyes, "he didn't just betray you. He made you a target." Maddie felt the blood drain from her face. "A target?" He nodded. "If the investigation heats up, someone will try to make you take the fall. Someone already sent you a warning." "And Grayson?" He exhaled slowly. "Grayson will throw you to the wolves the moment it benefits him." Silence filled the room, thick, heavy, suffocating. Then Julian added, voice low but firm, "You're going to need protection. And a lawyer, a very good one." Maddie gave a broken laugh. I can't afford that." Julian didn't blink. "I didn't ask if you could." For the first time, Maddie looked at him fully. Really looked and saw not a CEO, not a courtroom powerhouse, but a man who had made a decision long before she woke up. A decision that involved her. Julian stood, adjusting the sleeves he'd rolled up earlier. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we start fixing your life. She stared at him, stunned. Why are you helping me? She whispered, one last time. Julian paused at the door. Because someone should have helped you a long time ago. He glanced back, eyes steady. And because Grayson Hale has no idea who he's about to be up against. Thanks for watching. Julian Mercer had seen hundreds of people break in courtrooms, powerful CEOs who lost everything, white-collar criminals realizing the handcuffs were real, families shattered by verdicts they never expected. But he had never seen someone fall the way Madeline Brooks did. Not with that mix of exhaustion, betrayal, and something deeper he couldn't yet name. The moment she collapsed, something inside him snapped with a clarity he didn't expect. He wasn't supposed to care. He didn't even know her. Yet here he was, sitting beside her hospital bed, long after visiting hours had ended. Maddie stared at him now, eyes glossy with confusion and fear. Why are you doing this? She whispered. You don't even know me. Julian leaned back slightly, steepling his fingers as he chose his words carefully, something he rarely had to do. Most people feared his silence. But Maddie deserved honesty. I know enough, he said quietly. I know your husband is in serious trouble. I know someone used your name on documents that could bury you with him. And I know you fainted because the weight of all that was dropped on you without warning. Maddie closed her eyes as a tremor ran through her. He framed me. The words tasted like poison. Why? Why would he do that to me? Julian studied her, really looked at her. The thin hospital blanket couldn't hide how small she looked. Sleepless nights drew shadows under her eyes. Her shoulders curled inward the way people do when they've spent years trying to take up less space. He spoke softly. Because you trusted him. That made you easy to use. Her breath hitched a soft, wounded sound that twisted something in his chest. She looked away. I don't know what to do. I'm pregnant, and Her voice cracked. I don't even know if I'm safe. Julian's expression changed, sharpening with a resolve she didn't expect. I'm going to help you, he said simply. She shook her head weakly. No, I don't want to drag anyone else into this mess. You're not dragging me, Julian replied. I'm stepping in. There was no arrogance in his tone, only calm certainty. Maddie didn't understand it. Men like Julian, wealthy, powerful, untouchable, didn't get involved with people like her. They didn't sit in hospital rooms, didn't wait for clerks to wake up, didn't speak as though someone else's survival mattered to them. Why? She whispered again. Julian hesitated. Not because he didn't know, because he wasn't sure how much she was ready to hear. Finally, he said, because Grayson Hale isn't just a cheating husband. He's under investigation by several agencies, including some I work closely with. And if he put your name on fraudulent documents... Julian leaned forward, meeting her eyes. He didn't just betray you. He made you a target. Maddie felt the blood drain from her face. A target? He nodded. If the investigation heats up, someone will try to make you take the fall. Someone already sent you a warning. And Grayson? He exhaled slowly. Grayson will throw you to the wolves the moment it benefits him. Silence filled the room, thick, heavy, suffocating. Then Julian added, voice low but firm. You're going to need protection. And a lawyer. A very good one. Maddie gave a broken laugh. I can't afford that. Julian didn't blink. I didn't ask if you could. Thanks for watching. For the first time, Maddie looked at him fully, really looked and saw not a CEO, not a courtroom powerhouse, but a man who had made a decision long before she woke up. A decision that involved her. Julian stood, adjusting the sleeves he'd rolled up earlier. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we start fixing your life. She stared at him, stunned. Why are you helping me? She whispered, one last time. Julian paused at the door. Because someone should have helped you a long time ago. If T1. He glanced back, eyes steady. And because Grayson Hale has no idea who he's about to be up against. Madeline Brooks returned to the apartment late the next afternoon, her body still weak from the collapse and her mind swirling with everything Julian had told her. The hallway outside her door felt colder than usual, dark and silent, except for the distant hum of a broken light fixture. She hesitated before unlocking the door, part of her praying Grayson wouldn't be home, another part terrified he would be. The moment she stepped inside, she knew he was there. The apartment smelled like his cologne, sharp, expensive, suffocating. The lights were dimmed, the curtains half closed, the silence unsettling. Her pulse quickened as she set her keys down, praying he wouldn't hear the tremor in her breath. "Where the hell have you been?" His voice sliced through the air like a blade. Grayson emerged from the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, jaw tight with anger. His eyes were darker than usual, swirling with something crueler than simple annoyance. He looked her up and down, his gaze lingering with disapproval. "You didn't come home last night," he said, "and you ignored my calls." Maddie's hands clenched at her sides. "I fainted at the courthouse. I was taken to the hospital." He blinked, surprised, then irritated. "You fainted? Over what? The workload? Or did you just want attention?" Her throat tightened. "Grayson, He cut her off with a sharp laugh. "You made me look like an idiot. Do you know how many people asked me why my wife collapsed in the middle of a federal hearing?" He stepped closer. Too close. "Do you know how humiliating that is for me?" There it was. The truth as he saw it. Her pain was his inconvenience. Maddie swallowed hard. "There was a video," she whispered, "of you with Aubrey." For a moment, she saw something flicker in his eyes. Not guilt, not remorse. Annoyance. "So someone leaked it." "Big deal," he said. "You were never supposed to see it. You blow everything out of proportion." Her heart cracked open. "You cheated on me." He smirked. "Relax, Maddie. Everyone cheats in this city. You're acting like a child." Tears burned her eyes, but she held them back. "Not this time. Not in front of him." "I'm pregnant," she whispered. The room froze. Grayson stared at her, expression unreadable until a cold, sharp smile curled at the corner of his mouth. "No," he said. "You're not." Her breath caught. I am. The doctors." "No," he repeated, stepping closer. "You're not keeping it." She stumbled backward. "This is my decision. Our baby." Grayson's voice dropped to a chilling calm. "Maddie, do you have any idea what will happen if that pregnancy becomes public? Do you know what investigators will start asking? What they might dig up?" Her chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" He leaned in, eyes burning with a terrifying intensity. "You were the one who signed off those documents, not me." Her blood ran cold. "You put my name on them," she whispered. "You forged." "I did what I had to do," he snapped. "And now you're going to do what you have to do." End quote. His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist hard enough to make her gasp. "You will get rid of the baby. Do you hear me? I am not letting you ruin everything I've built." She yanked her hand back, breath shattering. "Let go of me." "Don't play the victim," he sneered. "You owe me. You wouldn't survive a day without me. And if you think anyone will believe your little story..." He didn't finish, because her phone buzzed on the counter. A single message from an unknown number. "Leave now. He's more dangerous than you think." Maddie's heart lurched. Grayson saw the message, and his face turned deadly. Madeline Brooks's pulse thrashed violently in her ears as the text message glowed on her screen. "Leave now. He's more dangerous than you think." She didn't know who was sending the warnings or how they knew what was happening inside her apartment, but she didn't have time to question it. Because Grayson Hale saw the message too, his eyes narrowing into something sharp, predatory, almost feral. "Who's sending you that?" he demanded. Maddie took a step back, instinctively putting distance between them. I don't know." "Don't lie to me." Grayson moved toward her, each step deliberate, calculated. "Who are you talking to? Who's trying to turn you against me?" "No one is turning me against you," she whispered. "You did that yourself." End quote. The moment the words left her mouth, the air changed. Grayson froze, stunned that she had spoken back at all. Slowly, he tilted his head, the anger in his eyes replaced by something colder. "So that's who you're becoming now?" he said. "A disrespectful little victim who thinks she suddenly has a voice?" Maddie's breath hitched, but she managed to hold his gaze. "I'm not a victim." "Oh, sweetheart," he sneered. "You always were." "Ate my..." He lunged forward and grabbed her upper arm, squeezing hard enough to make her wince. Panic surged through her, instinct telling her to shrink, to apologize, to keep the peace. It was the familiar dance he'd taught her, obedience wrapped as loyalty. But today, something in her snapped. "Let go of me, Grayson," she said, voice firm despite the fear clawing up her throat. He tightened his grip. "Not until you tell me who you're working with. Is it the prosecutors? Did someone get to you? Did you tell anyone about the documents?" "I didn't tell anyone," she cried. "I didn't know anything until today." That's the problem, he hissed. You know too much now. Her stomach dropped. What does that mean? He leaned in, his breath hot against her cheek. It means you're going to behave, Maddie. You're going to stay quiet. Sign whatever I tell you to sign, and you're not having that baby. Daughters. Her vision blurred with tears, not of weakness, but fury. No, she whispered. I'm done letting you control me. Shock flickered across his face, then rage took its place. You won't survive without me, he growled. You think anyone will believe you? You think the courts will listen to a nobody? Clerk over me? I built everything. I made you. Without me, you're nothing. Maddie shook her head, tears spilling freely now. No, Grayson, you didn't make me. You broke me. There's a difference. End quote. If you do the seventh, for the first time, real fear sparked in his eyes, not because he cared about her, but because he finally realized she wasn't bending anymore. I'm leaving, she said, pulling her arm back, and you're not stopping me. Grayson let out a laugh that wasn't really a laugh, more a warning wrapped in disbelief. You're not going anywhere. But then, a loud knock exploded against the front door. Grayson's head jerked toward the sound. Maddie froze. The knocking came again, harder this time. Madeline Brooks, a voice called. We need to speak with you immediately. Grayson stiffened. Who the hell is that? But Maddie recognized the voice instantly. Julian Mercer. She took a shaky breath. Grayson's eyes widened as the reality hit him. Julian was here. For her. And that changed everything. The pounding on the door rattled the entire apartment, each strike echoing like a countdown. Madeline Brooks, please open up now. End of chorus. Julian Mercer's voice wasn't loud, but it carried authority. The kind that made walls listen. The kind that made men like Grayson Hale tense. What is he doing here? Grayson hissed, his grip tightening on Maddie's arm. Did you call him? Are you working with him behind my back? I didn't call anyone, she whispered, her heart thundering. Another knock, firmer, sharper. Madeline, it's urgent. Grayson's jaw clenched as he dragged her a step away from the door. You're not talking to him. But for the first time in years, Maddie didn't obey. She twisted her arm free and stepped back, breath shaking but steady. Move, she said softly. Grayson stared at her, stunned that she dared to defy him. What did you say? I said, move. Julian knocked again. This time, he spoke through the door, voice low but unmistakably protective. Maddie, you're not safe. Let me in. Grayson's expression hardened into something ugly. You open that door, and I swear. But Maddie had already turned the lock. The door swung open, and Julian filled the frame, broad-shouldered, composed, eyes instantly scanning her face for harm. When he saw the bruise forming on her arm, his entire demeanor shifted. Something cold and lethal slid into place behind his calm exterior. Did he do that to you? Julian asked quietly. Maddie didn't answer, but her silence was enough. Julian stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Grayson moved forward like he intended to confront him, but Julian didn't even glance his way. Touch her again, Julian said, voice like steel wrapped in ice, and I will personally make sure you never walk into another boardroom again. Grayson scoffed. You think you can storm into my home and threaten me? You don't know who you're dealing with. Julian's eyes finally met his, and the shift in Grayson's face was immediate. Gone was the cocky arrogance. In its place, uncertainty, because Julian wasn't bluffing. And Grayson knew it. I know exactly who you are, Julian said, and I know what you've done. Something flickered in Grayson's expression, fear. Julian turned to Maddie. Get your things. You're leaving. Grayson exploded. She's not going anywhere. Yes, Julian replied calmly. She is. Maddie hesitated only a moment before grabbing a small duffel bag. Her hands shook as she stuffed inside whatever she could reach, phone charger, wallet, a few clothes. The apartment suddenly felt like a prison she'd been trapped in for years without realizing it. Grayson stepped toward her. You walk out that door, Maddie, and everything falls apart. You won't survive without me. You think he's saving you? He'll toss you aside once he's done using you. Julian stepped between them, blocking Grayson completely. You've used her long enough. It's over. Grayson's voice dropped, venomous and low. She's carrying my child. Julian didn't flinch. And that is precisely why she needs protection. Maddie inhaled sharply, her grip tightening around her bag. Julian motioned toward the hallway. Let's go. As they walked toward the door, Grayson spat out one last warning. "You think you can hide her? You have no idea what I'm capable of." Julian looked back over his shoulder, expression unreadable. "Oh, I do," he said. "That's why I'm 3 steps ahead of you. Presender." And then, as Maddie crossed the threshold, Julian placed a reassuring hand on her back. "Starting now," he said softly, "we take control." The safe house Julian brought Maddie to wasn't really a house. It was a private luxury apartment owned by Mercer Capital, perched on the 34th floor overlooking Park Avenue. Floor-to-ceiling windows washed the room in gold light, and the silence felt almost unreal compared to the chaos Maddie had just escaped. Still shaken, she sat on the edge of the sleek leather sofa, her duffel bag clutched to her chest. Julian stood across the room, speaking quietly on his phone, his voice calm, precise, all business. A sharp contrast to the storm inside her. She didn't know how long he spoke, but when he finally hung up, he turned toward her with that steady gaze she was beginning to rely on. "You're safe for now," he said, "but things just got more complicated." Maddie swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Julian walked over and handed her a glass of water. "Someone reached out to me this morning before I came to find you." "Someone?" she echoed. "Aubrey Lang." The name hit Maddie like a slap. The red dress, the lipstick. The woman who kissed Grayson under the streetlight as if Maddie didn't exist. What does she want?" Maddie whispered. "To save herself," Julian said, "and to destroy him." Before Maddie could respond, Julian's phone vibrated. He glanced at the caller ID, then met her eyes. "Speak of the devil." He answered and put the phone on speaker. A shaky voice filled the room. "Julian, are you alone?" "Yes," he replied, "and Maddie is here." A beat of silence crackled through the line. Then, "Maddie, I'm so sorry." The apology didn't feel sincere. Aubrey didn't sound like someone ashamed. She sounded like someone terrified. "What do you want?" Maddie asked quietly. Aubrey inhaled sharply. "Grayson is losing control. He thinks you're going to turn on him. I heard him on the phone this morning. He's trying to blame you for everything. He's already told people you forged documents behind his back." Maddie's stomach twisted. "I didn't even know about them." "He doesn't care," Aubrey said. "He just needs someone to sacrifice, and you're the easiest." Julian stepped closer to the phone. "What do you have for us, Aubrey?" There was rustling on the other end, like she was pacing. "I have proof. Emails, recordings, conversations he didn't know I heard. He told me he put Maddie's name on the forms because she's disposable." His words, not mine. Maddie felt her breath catch pain, humiliation, anger, all swirling in one crushing wave. Aubrey continued, her voice dropping lower. "And there's something else, something big." Julian's eyes narrowed. "Go on." Grayson didn't just falsify documents. He funneled investor money through offshore accounts, millions. And the only way he kept it hidden was by using people's names, people he assumed wouldn't fight back. Maddie whispered, "People like me." "Yes," Aubrey said softly. "And he did it before. You're not the first, just the one he thought he could control completely." Julian's jaw clenched. "Send everything you have. Now." "I will," Aubrey said. "But Julian, he knows I'm scared. If he finds out I talked to you." "He won't," Julian cut in, firm. "You're under my protection now." 2024. Aubrey let out a shaky breath. "Then I'll send the files within the hour." "And Julian?" "Yes? Don't let him get near Maddie again. He's not just panicking, he's dangerous." The call ended, leaving a heavy stillness in the room. Maddie stared at the phone as if it might burst into flames. "She helped him destroy my life," she whispered. "Why would she help now?" Julian sat beside her, voice low. "Because Grayson Hale only loves one thing, his empire. And when men like him feel it slipping away, they become monsters." He turned to face her fully. "And now, Maddie." His eyes burned with quiet fire. "We finally have the weapon to bring him down." Night had already settled over Manhattan, painting the city in streaks of gold and shadow, when Julian and Maddie sat together in the living room of the safe apartment. The atmosphere was tense, not chaotic, not loud, but heavy, in a way that made Maddie's hands tremble slightly as she waited for the files Aubrey promised. Julian glanced at his phone every few minutes, jaw clenched with barely restrained anticipation. He wasn't nervous. Julian Mercer didn't do nervous. But there was something in his eyes, a sharpened alertness that told Maddie the next few moments mattered more than anything before. Finally, his phone buzzed. A single email notification. Aubrey Lang. Subject: everything. Julian opened the attachments. The room fell silent. Several audio recordings, dozens of screenshots, a spreadsheet of offshore transactions, copies of falsified forms, some with Maddie's forged signature, others tying Grayson directly to illegal transfers. But one document made Julian still completely. A folder labeled MB Primary Asset. Maddie leaned in. What does that mean? Julian clicked the file open. The document was a blueprint, a full schematic of how Grayson planned to use Maddie as the central scapegoat in a massive fraud defense. It listed her job title, vulnerabilities, psychological profile, access points to federal records, and even her medical history. He had studied her, plotted around her life, turned her existence into a weapon. Maddie's blood ran cold. He wrote all this? Julian's face darkened. This isn't just preparation, this is orchestration. He built his defense around blaming you months ago. Maddie pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. He always knew the company would collapse, and instead of fixing it, he planned to throw me in front of the fire. Julian scrolled further and then stopped again, expression tightening. A timeline, detailed, chilling. 6 months earlier, introduce Maddie's name into financial documents. 5 months earlier, encourage feelings of inadequacy and isolation. Precedent. 4 months earlier, increase pressure to rely financially on GH. 3 months earlier, begin separate relationship with Aubrey. 2 months earlier, remove Maddie from primary communication loops. 1 month earlier, prepare forged signatures. 2 weeks earlier, leak video to create emotional instability. Yesterday, begin collapse sequence. Maddie couldn't breathe. The betrayal, she thought she understood. She hadn't even touched the surface. He planned the video leak, she whispered. He wanted me to break. Julian nodded grimly. Yes. He wanted you distracted, unstable, discredited. He needed the court to see you as unreliable. Her vision blurred with tears. All those moments he made me feel crazy, all the times he dismissed me, it was never accidental. No, Julian said softly. Grayson Hale doesn't make mistakes, he manipulates. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Maddie stared at the floor. Why me? Why was I the primary asset? Julian exhaled, his voice gentler than she'd heard it before. Because you trusted him. Because you loved him. Because you believed in him so deeply he knew you'd never suspect him until it was too late. A tear fell onto her hand. She hadn't even realized she was crying. And because, Julian added, you had something he didn't. She looked up, confused. What? Access, he said. Your job gave you visibility into federal systems. He needed someone inside the courthouse. Someone clean. Someone who looked harmless. Maddie covered her face, shoulders shaking. I was nothing but a tool to him. Julian gently took her wrists, pulling her hands away so she had to meet his eyes. Madeline, he said quietly, you were never nothing. He chose you because he knew you were smarter than he was, kinder than he was, more trusted than he was. Everything he lacks, you have. She blinked through tears, breath trembling. I feel like my whole life was a lie. Julian's voice lowered, calm but fierce. It was a lie he built, not a life you built. She stared at him, waiting for the final truth. Julian tapped the last document. Get ready, Maddie. Her heart stilled. Because now we have enough evidence, he said, eyes burning with purpose, to bury Grayson Hale for good. Madeline Brooks had spent most of her life trying not to be noticed. She spoke softly, dressed modestly, and apologized even when she hadn't done anything wrong. But after the files Aubrey sent after learning she had been mapped, studied, and weaponized by the man she loved, something inside her cracked open, and something new began to rise. The next morning, Julian escorted her into one of the conference suites inside Mercer Capital's private offices. It wasn't an interrogation room or a war zone, but it felt like one. Large screens lined the walls, displaying financial charts, legal documents, and maps of every shell company Grayson had hidden behind. A team of analysts and lawyers waited, each one stopping what they were doing as Julian entered. Everyone, Julian said, his voice calm but commanding. This is Madeline Brooks. She's not a witness. She's not a bystander. She's our key partner from this point on." The words stunned her. No one had ever introduced her with respect, let alone authority. A woman with auburn hair and square glasses approached. "I'm Lila, your legal liaison. We'll walk you through every step." A stylist, yes, an actual stylist, entered with a garment bag. Mr. Mercer requested a professional wardrobe fitting for upcoming proceedings. Maddie blinked. "For me?" Julian nodded. "You're going to be in public hearings soon. You need to feel strong, not cornered." If it Reger, her instinct was to shrink back, to say she didn't need any of this, but the old Maddie was fading, piece by piece. Instead, she inhaled deeply. "Okay, let's start." Lila sat her down with a tablet. "We reviewed every document Grayson forged. You didn't just stumble into this. You were targeted because you're trusted at the courthouse." Another attorney added, "That makes you credible in front of any judge." Credible. Another word she never thought would be used for her. As the team continued briefing her, Maddie realized something else. She understood more than she expected. Her years working in the legal system weren't meaningless. She caught inconsistencies others missed, traced timelines faster than junior analysts, and explained court procedures with clarity. At one point, Julian watched her with something like surprise. "You're remarkable," he murmured. Grayson underestimated the wrong person. Heat rose to her cheeks, embarrassment, not shyness. She wasn't used to praise without strings attached. Then came the physical transformation. The stylist led Maddie into a private room and unzipped the garment bag. Inside were outfits she had never imagined wearing, sleek lines, subtle elegance, strength woven into fabric. Maddie ran her fingers over a tailored navy dress, structured at the shoulders, commanding in presence. "It's powerful without being loud," the stylist said. "Just like you." N20. Maddie stared at her reflection in the mirror as the dress slid into place. Her posture straightened. Her eyes sharpened. She looked capable. She looked like someone who could walk into a courtroom and not tremble. She looked nothing like the woman Grayson had tried to break. Julian knocked lightly before entering. When he saw her, he paused mid-step. For a long second, he said nothing. Then quietly, "You look like you finally see yourself." Her throat tightened. "I don't recognize this person." "You will," he said. She was always there. A warmth spread through her, a strength she didn't know she still had. But the moment was interrupted when Julian's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, and his expression hardened instantly. "What is it?" Maddie asked. Julian exhaled slowly. "It's Grayson," he said. "He's filed an emergency petition with the court." Her heart dropped. "For what?" Julian met her eyes, voice low. "To claim you're mentally unstable and to take full control of your finances." The room spun. Because this wasn't just retaliation, it was war. Manhattan Federal Court rose before Madeline Brooks like a monolith, cold stone, towering columns, and the weight of 1,000 truths locked behind its doors. But for the first time, Maddie didn't feel small standing at its steps. The tailored navy dress hugged her frame with quiet authority, and the winter wind swept her hair back like a cape. Julian walked beside her, emanating calm power in a charcoal suit that could make any boardroom fall silent. He didn't touch her, didn't hover, but his presence alone made the world steadier. Inside, courtroom 7 buzzed like a disturbed beehive. Reporters whispered, attorneys watched. Some recognized Maddie, but didn't recognize this version of her. Grayson Hale sat at the petitioner's table, immaculate in a tailored gray suit, every strand of hair perfectly styled. But his eyes cold, calculating, followed Maddie as she entered. Shock flickered across his face. The woman he'd expected to arrive trembling, fragile, and ashamed was gone. And Grayson hated surprises. He leaned over to his attorney, whispering sharply. The attorney, a tall man with slicked back hair and a reputation for winning ugly, adjusted his tie and smirked at Maddie. The judge entered. "All rise." Everyone stood. Once seated, the judge addressed the courtroom. "We are here to review the emergency petition filed by Mr. Grayson Hale regarding the mental stability of Mrs. Madeline Brooks." The words hit Maddie like ice. This was exactly what Julian warned her about. Grayson stood confidently. "Your Honor, my wife has been exhibiting increasingly erratic behavior. She fainted during a federal hearing, has been unreachable, and has made accusations that are frankly concerning. I fear she may be experiencing delusional episodes. I be no there, a peace. Maddie felt her stomach clench. A faint, a collapse, a moment of vulnerability weaponized against her. Grayson continued, I'm requesting temporary control over her finances and medical decisions until she receives proper evaluation. Julian leaned forward, voice low enough for only Maddie to hear. He's overplaying. Judges don't like theatrics. The judge turned. Mrs. Brooks, do you wish to respond? Maddie stood. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. Every eye, every breath, every whisper paused to witness what she would do. Her voice, when it came, was steady. Your Honor, I fainted due to stress and dehydration after discovering my husband's infidelity in the middle of a federal trial. Murmurs rippled across the room. My medical evaluation confirms pregnancy, not instability. The judge lifted a brow. Maddie continued, as for being unreachable, I was recovering in a hospital bed alone. My husband never visited, not once. A collective sharp inhale swept the courtroom. Grayson stiffened. Julian rose smoothly. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Hale attempted to coerce Mrs. Brooks into terminating her pregnancy. Additionally, we possess documentation and recordings indicating Mr. Hale has been manipulating and exploiting her for financial cover. The judge frowned. Recordings? Julian nodded. Provided by a cooperating witness. Grayson shot to his feet. Absolutely not. Your Honor, this is a smear campaign. Sit down, Mr. Hale, the judge snapped. Grayson's attorney whispered frantically, but the unraveling had begun. Julian submitted a sealed envelope to the clerk. Inside are emails, recorded threats, and financial documents falsified in Mrs. Brooks's name. The judge reviewed the first page. Her expression hardened instantly. This looks serious. Maddie watched Grayson's face drain of color. This man, this arrogant, untouchable mastermind, finally looked afraid again. The judge slammed the gavel. Petition denied. And Mr. Hale, you are hereby ordered to cease all contact with Mrs. Brooks until further investigation. A wave of relief nearly brought Maddie to her knees. But the judge wasn't finished. This court will open a deeper inquiry into Mr. Hale's financial practices. Proceedings begin Monday. End quote. Julian placed a reassuring hand at the small of Maddie's back as they prepared to leave. But before they reached the door, Grayson hissed under his breath. This isn't over, Madeline. Maddie turned no tremor, no fear. No, she said softly. It's just beginning. The Mercer Capital War Room was dim except for the soft glow of screens lining the walls. Julian stood at the center table, sleeves rolled up, eyes fixed on a set of audio files Aubrey had just sent. Maddie sat across from him, her posture straighter than before, though her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. Are you ready? Julian asked gently. She nodded. I need to know everything. No more being in the dark. Julian clicked the first recording. Aubrey's voice came through shaky, nervous, recorded in secret. Grayson, why didn't you tell her about the hotel? About that night? Then Grayson's voice cold, amused, dripping arrogance. Because she doesn't matter, and she never will. Maddie flinched. Julian paused the audio. Are you okay? Yes, she said quietly. Play the rest. The next recording began. Aubrey sounded angry, almost frantic. You drugged her, Grayson. She could have died. Maddie froze. What? Julian's eyes widened, but he said nothing, letting the recording continue. Grayson's tone sharpened with annoyance. Relax. It was just enough to keep her asleep, so I could get the documents signed. She was so out of it, she didn't even know what she touched. Stop overreacting. Maddie's blood ran cold. He drugged me. He drugged me. I'm going to be sick, she whispered, pressing a trembling hand to her mouth. Julian stood, rounding the table to kneel beside her. Maddie, you didn't sign anything. He tried to make it look like you did, but these files prove you were unconscious. Tears blurred her vision. But he drugged me. I thought I was just exhausted. I thought it was my fault. It was never your fault, Julian said softly, gripping her hands. He planned it, every detail. The next recording was worse. Aubrey, and the pregnancy? What if she finds out? What if... Grayson, she won't keep it. She's too weak. If she doesn't end it on her own, I'll handle it. Julian cursed under his breath and immediately stopped the audio. Maddie's breath broke. He wanted to get rid of the baby. Julian's jaw clenched. He didn't just want to ruin your life. He wanted control of every piece of it. Maddie stared at the table, vision swimming. All those times he woke me up at night to sign something. All the nights I felt dizzy. All the times he asked if I took the pills he gave me. Her voice cracked. He was preparing to destroy me, before I even realized what he was doing. Julian squeezed her hand. And now we have proof that he orchestrated everything from drugging you to manipulating your medical state. There was a soft tap at the door. Lila entered, holding a thick folder. We found something else, she said. Something bigger. Julian took the folder, skimmed the top page, and froze. Maddie, he said carefully, these aren't just fraudulent documents. These are federal-level falsifications. If we present these in court, it won't just ruin Grayson. 8. He looked up, eyes burning with intensity. It will end him. Maddie swallowed hard. Fear and relief tangled inside her, warring with each other. What do we do now? She asked. Julian closed the folder. We take this to Judge Kelmore. Tomorrow. Her heart pounded. Won't Grayson retaliate? Julian stood, jaw set with iron resolve. He already has. Now it's our turn. Maddie rose slowly, her legs trembling but determined. She wasn't the fragile woman who collapsed in a courtroom anymore. She wasn't the wife who begged for scraps of affection. She was walking into battle with truth as her weapon. Julian handed her the folder. You're ready? She nodded. But just as she reached for the door, Julian's phone pinged with a notification. He glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. What is it? Maddie asked. He turned the phone so she could see. A message from an unknown number. Grayson knows what you found, and he's coming. The elevator ride up to the safe apartment felt unbearably long. As soon as the doors opened, Julian placed a firm hand on Maddie's back and guided her inside. He checked every lock, every window, every blind, his movements crisp, controlled, but edged with quiet urgency. Maddie watched him, her pulse still racing from the message. Grayson knows what you found, and he's coming. She pressed a hand to her abdomen, overwhelmed by fear for herself and the fragile life growing inside her. Julian, what if he actually comes? What if he tries to? He won't touch you. Julian's voice was low, certain. Not while I'm here. He stepped closer, gently taking her trembling hand. Sit, breathe. She sank onto the sofa, burying her face in her palms. I don't understand how my life collapsed so fast. Last month I was just trying to make my marriage work, trying to be useful, trying to be enough. Julian sat beside her, but not too close, like he understood she needed space, yet still needed someone near. Maddie, he said quietly, you were never the problem. Grayson saw your goodness and turned it into something he could control. Men like him feed on trust. But that doesn't mean your trust was wrong. It means he didn't deserve it. Her shoulders shook. I feel stupid. You weren't stupid, Julian replied. You were loyal, and that's not a flaw. Is a day. She swallowed hard, tears threatening. I didn't realize how lonely I felt until you were there in the courtroom. Until you carried me out like I mattered. Julian's jaw tightened, and he looked away for a moment, almost as if he were hiding something raw. You do matter, he said at last. You mattered before today. You mattered long before you ever met me. Silence settled between them, a soft, fragile silence neither wanted to break. Finally, Julian spoke again, his voice low. There's something you don't know about me. Something I didn't tell you earlier because I didn't want you to think I was interfering. Maddie frowned, wiping her eyes. What is it? Julian leaned back, exhaling. I've been watching Grayson's company for months. Not you, his company. I suspected fraud long before you fainted in that courtroom. I knew someone inside was being used without their consent. I just didn't know it was you. Her breath caught. So you were already investigating him, before all of this happened. Yes. His eyes softened. But after I saw you collapse, it stopped being just an investigation. She stared at him, heart aching in a way she didn't understand. Julian continued. I lost someone years ago. A woman I cared about. She was caught in someone else's crimes, and I didn't get there in time to protect her. Maddie's chest tightened. Julian, I'm so sorry. He shook his head. I'm telling you because I want you to understand something. I won't let that happen again. Not to you. Her breath trembled. Why me? Why do you care so much? He didn't look away this time. Because when I saw you on that courtroom floor, I felt the same fear I felt the night I lost her. And I realized, his voice dropped to a whisper, I wasn't afraid of losing a witness. I was afraid of losing you. A soft knock suddenly jolted them both upright. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Julian's expression hardened instantly. He placed a finger over his lips, motioning Maddie to stay silent. He approached the door cautiously, checking the security camera feed. His entire body stiffened. He turned to Maddie, voice razor sharp. Go to the bedroom. Now. Who is it? She whispered. Julian's eyes darkened. It's Grayson. Madeline's breath froze in her chest. Grayson Hale, standing outside the secure apartment, was impossible. Julian had personally overseen the security protocols. Only a handful of people even knew where she was. Yet the shadow on the screen, the way he stood too still, too controlled, too expectant, there was no mistaking him. Julian, she whispered. How did he find us? Julian didn't answer. His jaw was clenched tight, eyes locked on the feed like a wolf sizing up a threat. Every muscle in his body radiated alertness. Go to the bedroom, he repeated, voice deadly calm. Lock the door. Don't make a sound. But Maddie shook her head, fear and fury colliding inside her. I can't just hide. He won't leave. He won't stop. Julian turned sharply. Madeline, do exactly what I say. She took a step back. But then Grayson knocked again. 3 slow taps. The same pattern he used the first time he ever came home late. Maddie, his voice rang through the hallway, muffled but unmistakably desperate. I know you're in there. Julian stiffened. Maddie went pale. Grayson wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. He sounded terrified. Open the door, Grayson begged. Please. I need to talk to you. Just you, not him. Julian's eyes narrowed. He's acting. No, Maddie whispered, her stomach twisting. That doesn't sound like acting. Julian switched the feed to audio. Grayson's voice cracked. They're coming for me, Maddie. I know you have the files. I know you saw everything, but you don't understand someone set me up. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Everyone, Julian muttered under his breath. He's lying to save himself. But then, Grayson leaned closer to the door, voice dropping into a trembling whisper. I never meant to hurt you. You were never supposed to get dragged into this. His breath hitched. I swear, Maddie, I didn't know they'd target you. Maddie and Julian exchanged a sharp look. They? Before either could react, Grayson continued, desperation spilling out of him. I can fix this, but you have to let me inside. Please. Before it's too late. Julian stepped away from the screen, pinching the bridge of his nose. He's cornered. Cornered men say anything. But Maddie heard something different. Fear. Real fear. The kind Grayson never allowed himself to show. She swallowed hard, torn between terror and fury. Julian. He knows someone else is involved. That doesn't matter, Julian replied firmly. You're not opening that door. Suddenly, Grayson's fist slammed against the door, loud, violent, panicked. Maddie, please. I know you're angry, but you don't understand what's happening. They framed me. They're framing both of us. When they come after me, they'll come after you next. Julian moved closer to the door, positioning himself between Maddie and danger. Enough, he muttered. He's losing control. Maddie's heart pounded. She didn't know what terrified her more, Grayson's words, or the way Julian's expression shifted into something unreadable. Grayson pressed his forehead to the door, voice breaking. I loved you, Maddie. I still love you. I made mistakes, but I can fix them. I just need you to trust me like you used to. Tears stung, her eyes, anger, sorrow, betrayal, blending so tightly she couldn't separate them. Julian's voice was steady. He's manipulating you. But Maddie whispered. Then why does he sound like he's begging for his life? Silence. Then, a sound echoed through the hallway on the security feed. Footsteps. Heavy. More than one pair. Shadows appeared behind Grayson. Julian's jaw tightened. Someone followed him. Grayson whipped around in fear, banging on the door wildly. Maddie, please open the door. Maddie froze as a tall figure stepped into the camera frame. Julian's eyes widened. Madeline, he whispered. Get behind me. Who is that? she breathed. Julian's voice dropped to a chilling murmur. That's not one of ours. If you can't know. On the screen, the unknown man reached for Grayson, and Grayson screamed. Grayson's scream tore through the hallway, speakers raw, panicked, nothing like the polished man Maddie once knew. On the security monitor, his body jerked backward as the tall stranger grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. The sound wasn't loud, but it echoed in Maddie's bones. Julian, she choked out, backing away from the door. I see it, Julian said, eyes fixed on the screen, jaw rigid. Stay behind me. The stranger's face never showed in full, only the outline of a broad shoulder, a gloved hand, a silhouette far too controlled to be random. This wasn't a mugger. This wasn't coincidence. This was planned. Grayson struggled, voice cracking. You don't have to do this. I'll get the money, just give me time. The man didn't respond. Instead, he tightened his grip. Maddie's knees nearly gave out. Money? Julian, what money? Julian didn't look at her. His attention was razor-locked on the monitor. Someone funded Grayson's offshore accounts, Julian said quietly. Someone bigger than him. And now that everything's collapsing, he's worth more as a scapegoat than a partner. Meaning? Julian exhaled sharply. Meaning they're here to clean up loose ends. On the screen, the stranger pulled Grayson down the hall. Grayson scraped against the floor, hands clawing for anything to grab. He reached the safe apartment door and pounded desperately. Maddie, please help me. She flinched. The instinct to move, run, open fight collided inside her like broken glass. Julian grabbed her shoulders. Don't go near that door, he said, low and fierce. He made his choices, and he put your life on the line long before today. But he's terrified. He's terrified of the people he owes, Julian snapped softly. Not of losing you, not of what he did to you. Intrescence. Another scream erupted through the speakers. The stranger dragged Grayson toward the elevator. Grayson fought with everything he had, but the stranger moved with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. Someone trained, someone whose strength didn't rely on rage, but precision. This is bad, Julian muttered. Maddie looked at him, trembling. We have to call the police. I already did. He held up his phone. But they won't arrive in time. Why am I free to? As the elevator doors slid open on the camera feed, Maddie saw a second man inside the elevator, waiting. Two of them. The stranger shoved Grayson inside the elevator. Grayson's pleas turned into sobbing panic. Please, please, don't kill me. I can fix it. I'll fix everything. The man in the elevator finally spoke. His voice was low and calm, the kind of calm that chilled the blood. You had your chance, Mr. Hale. The doors slid shut. Grayson's screams were cut cleanly off. Maddie gasped, clutching her chest. Julian, oh God, did we just watch? No, Julian said immediately, gripping her hand tightly. No, they won't kill him. Not yet. They need leverage. They need a bargaining chip. For what? Julian turned to her slowly. For you. Her breath stopped. What do you mean for me? Julian paced, running a hand through his hair. Grayson used your name to hide fraud. That makes you the only person who can expose everything, which means you're a threat. If a Sioux. Maddie's heart pounded, throat burning. Julian, am I going to die because of what he did? He stopped pacing, looked at her, stepped closer. No, he said, voice thick with conviction. I will not let anything happen to you. Not now, not ever. Her breath shook. But Grayson is out of the picture for now, Julian said. But whoever took him, they're coming for the files next. And we have them. A cold realization washed over her. They're coming for us. Experience. Julian didn't deny it. Instead, he picked up his phone, dialed a number, and spoke with deadly clarity. Activate protocol Blackline. We're moving. Maddie stared at him, heart racing. Where are we going? Julian lifted his coat, eyes burning with protective fire. Somewhere Grayson never could. Where? She whispered. Julian held out his hand. To the only place we can end this. The courtroom felt different this time, sharper, colder, heavier with expectation. Reporters packed the benches, whispering Maddie's name as she walked toward the front. Flashing eyes tracked her every movement. But she didn't shrink, she didn't tremble. The navy dress hugged her figure with quiet authority. Her hair was pinned back with deliberate precision. And Julian walked beside her like a silent shield, his presence adding gravity to every step she took. Today was not about fear. Today was about truth. Judge Kelmore entered, and the room rose. When everyone sat again, the clerk announced, "Case, United States versus Grayson Hale." A ripple of anticipation swept through the courtroom as federal agents escorted Grayson in through a side door. He looked nothing like the polished executive Maddie once loved. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, wrists cuffed, eyes hollow from a night of running, begging, and bargaining for survival. For a moment, he scanned the room and found her. Maddie stayed still. He opened his mouth, maybe to plead or to manipulate, but an agent pushed him into a chair, ending any hope he had of regaining control. The prosecution began by presenting the forged documents, each bearing her falsified signature. The room buzzed with outrage when the audio recordings played. Aubrey's trembling voice, Grayson's cold confessions, his plan to drug Maddie, his intention to destroy her utterly. Then came the offshore accounts, the laundering trails, the timeline. Piece by piece, the monster he had built unraveled. Grayson erupted. "This is fabricated, all of it. She's framing me. That woman, she betrayed me." Judge Kelmore slammed her gavel. "Silence, Mr. Hale." But Grayson kept going. "She set me up. Julian Mercer set me up. You think she's innocent? She's nothing without me." Julian remained still, hands folded, expression unreadable. Maddie slowly stood. Her attorney nodded encouragement from her side. Judge Kelmore turned toward her. "Mrs. Brooks, you may speak." Maddie felt her heartbeat soar. Fear, memory, rage, but she took a breath and let the weight of every scar steady her voice. "I believed in my husband," she began. "I trusted him. I supported him. And he used that trust to destroy me. He drugged me. He stole my name. He forged my signatures and planned every step of my downfall." Gasps rippled across the courtroom. Grayson shifted wildly in his seat. "I didn't know what he was doing," Maddie continued, her voice stronger now. "I didn't know the danger I was in. I only knew something was wrong when I fainted in court. But that collapse saved my life. Because it forced the truth into the light." She turned to Grayson. "You didn't expect me to stand up, did you? You didn't expect me to fight back. You made me small for years so I wouldn't see how powerful I could be." Grayson shook his head violently. "Maddie, stop, please." But she didn't. "You don't get to beg," she said softly. "Not after everything you took from me." Judge Kelmore's voice cut in, firm and unwavering. "Thank you, Mrs. Brooks. You may sit." The room exhaled as Maddie returned to her seat. Grayson lunged forward in a last desperate attempt to speak. "Maddie, you love me, you—" Agents pinned him down. Judge Kelmore reviewed the final documents carefully. Then, "This court finds sufficient evidence to proceed with all charges. Mr. Hale, bail is denied. You will remain in federal custody pending trial." Gasps filled the room. Grayson collapsed into his seat, defeated, broken. Maddie felt her chest tighten, but this time, it wasn't pain. It was release. Julian leaned close, voice low. "You did it." "No," she whispered, eyes never leaving Grayson. "He did this to himself." The gavel struck, and the world Maddie once feared finally shifted in her favor. When the courtroom emptied and the last echo of the gavel faded, Manhattan felt different to Madeline Brooks. The wind outside was still sharp, the taxi horns still impatient, the city lights still relentless, but for the first time in years, she felt none of it pressing on her chest. She walked down the courthouse steps with Julian beside her, not as a frightened clerk, not as a woman broken by betrayal, but as someone who had survived the fire and stepped out the other side still standing. Stronger, whole, free. Reporters shouted her name, cameras flashed, microphones pushed toward her, but Julian raised a hand, shielding her from the storm. "No questions today," he said firmly. "Mrs. Brooks needs peace." She almost laughed. Mrs. Brooks. That name wouldn't belong to Grayson anymore. Soon, the divorce would be finalized. Her life would be her own. As they reached the black sedan waiting at the curb, Julian opened the door for her. But instead of getting in immediately, Maddie turned to him, her expression soft but steady. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for saving me, for believing me, for seeing me." Julian shook his head gently. "You saved yourself. I just cleared the path." She smiled, small but real. "Still, no one has stood beside me the way you have." He held her gaze, something unspoken hanging between them. Not obligation, not pity, something warmer, quieter, deeper. He gestured toward the car. Come on. There's somewhere I want to take you. They drove in silence through evening Manhattan, passing the shimmering windows of Fifth Avenue, the glow of Central Park lamplights, and the towering silhouettes of skyscrapers rising like guardians around them. Finally, the car stopped at a quiet overlook near the river, one of the few places in the city where the skyline reflected perfectly on the water. Maddie stepped out, stunned by the serenity. It's beautiful, she breathed. Julian joined her, hands in his coat pockets. I thought you could use a moment where the world isn't demanding something from you. The wind brushed a strand of hair across her cheek. She tucked it behind her ear, then glanced at him with a thoughtful expression. What happens now? She asked softly. With the investigation? With everything? Julian exhaled. Now? You rebuild, you heal. You decide what kind of life you want, and I'll help you, in whatever way you need. He paused. If you want me to. Her heart fluttered, an unfamiliar but welcome warmth spreading through her. Before she could speak, Julian reached into his coat. Maddie froze, breath catching as he took out a small velvet box, Tiffany blue. Julian, she whispered. He smiled, gentle and calm. Relax. I'm not asking for anything today. He opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring, no excess, no ostentation, just meaning shaped in gold. I'm giving you this for one reason, he said softly. To remind you that your story didn't end in that courtroom. It starts now. And whether you ever want a partner or prefer to stand alone, I want you to know one thing. He stepped closer. You are worthy of a life that honors you. Her eyes filled instantly. And if one day, Julian continued, voice barely above a whisper, you find yourself ready for something more, I'll be here, not to rescue you, not to fix you, just to walk beside you. A tear slipped down her cheek. She closed his hand gently over the box. Julian, I'm not ready today, she said, but for the first time, I believe I could be ready someday. He smiled a rare, unguarded smile. That's all I needed to hear. She leaned into him, resting her head lightly against his shoulder as Manhattan sparkled before them. For the first time in her life, Madeline Brooks felt like the world wasn't something she had to survive. It was something she could finally live in. So, our story finally comes to an end. And if you are still here, listening, feeling, breathing with me until this moment, then something in Maddie's journey touched your heart in a way maybe you didn't expect. Maybe it reminded you of your own storms, your own quiet battles, your own nights holding yourself together when the world felt too heavy. You know, the Stoics used to say, the obstacle is the way. And Maddie is living proof of that. What tried to break her, shaped her. What tried to silence her, taught her to speak. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. She reclaimed that power. And so can you. Maybe healing isn't loud. Maybe it starts with one small decision. I deserve better. If this story stayed with you, if it stirred something true inside you, then my friend, don't leave quietly. Leave a like, share this journey with someone who might need it, and subscribe so you don't walk the next story alone. Because in this little corner of the internet, you and I, we heal, we grow, and we rise together.